So in this first video, we want to understand which system we need to be thinking about when we're trying to improve our stress management and connection. And that system is called the autonomic nervous system. So I'm hoping all of you have heard of the nervous system. This is the system or organ in our body that helps us feel, see, smell, taste, and touch. These are our five senses. And these five senses, along with movement, are really governed by things called the nerves. And these nerves are either going to be part of the central nervous system, which is part of the brain and spinal cord, or they're going to come out from these areas and be part of what we call the peripheral nervous system. This peripheral nervous system is then broken up into different functions. One of those functions, for example, is your movement. So the somatic nervous system is extremely important to help you move. But another nervous system, and the one we want to focus on today, is called the autonomic nervous system, or ANS. And this is divided into two branches. Rather than using these terms and maybe making it confusing, I want to make this concept as simple as possible. What I want you to understand is that this nervous system focuses primarily on getting information from the five senses. Once that information comes, whether it's from touch or taste or smell or sound or sight, that information is relayed back to the brain and the spinal cord, and a decision has to be taken by these two organs. And that decision is going to come in two flavors. So let's understand what that decision would look like. And on this slide, as you can see, we have the sympathetic nervous system. That's going to be one decision. And the parasympathetic nervous system, that's the other decision. So we're going to take a couple of examples and understand what that's going to look like in the body. So let's start off with an extreme. If a tiger was to be looking directly at your face right now, and if you were just walking and all of a sudden you saw this animal, this would activate, when we look back at this system, what we call the sympathetic division. So when that information from sight of that tiger goes back to the brain and the spinal cord, the decision is made to activate this system. And what would that look like? What we call this is fight, fright, or flight response. So some of the things that might happen in your body as a response to seeing this tiger. All of a sudden, your brain is going to hyper-focus on the situation. This is so that you're focused on survival, right? There's now a threat to your survival, and so your body will hyper-focus on that activity in order to keep you in a state of highest functioning. Your blood pressure may go up, your heart rate may go up. All of this is to prepare you. Just like that tiger, this could even be a car coming towards you or somebody approaching you in a manner of fighting. All of these things, like elevated blood pressure and high heart rate, are going to help you give that oxygen and blood and nutrients to your muscles and your body to prepare you if you have to run, if you have to get afraid and get still, or if you actually have to fight. The other important thing that I want you to see here is what happens to your digestive tract. This is a very important connection to that nutrition aspect of holistic living and lifestyle. So when you are in this category, your body is going to utilize nutrients. It's going to utilize calories intensely because you may have to utilize those muscles. You may have to run. You may have to fight, for example. And in all of these situations, you need to use nutrients and calories. The other thing that's important here is the digestive tract requires energy, just like the muscles in your body do. And so if this system is activated, the body is going to choose to halt digestion in order to focus on dealing with what I would like to call the threat at hand. That threat, like we said, could be a tiger, could be a car coming towards you, or it could be you about to step on a nail, or if you were to smell fire, for example. So anytime those five senses are heightened, and they're going to activate this response. Now, a similar activation of this response, but much more under your control and much less extreme, depending on what you do, is activity. So, this right here. So, when you do any type of movement, all of these movements are what we would consider training for survival, because all of these movements that you do in your body are also going to cause you to elevate your blood pressure and increase your heart rate. For example, when you're about to work out or go for an intense walk or a yoga class, we really don't suggest you have a super heavy meal right before you do that. And a big part of that is because digestion is not going to actively be happening while you're moving. And we don't want that food to just sit there, correct? So in movement, this is a great example of you actively going into this system in the body. The other important thing that I want you to see here is that this system is inherently not bad. It's a good thing that we have this built into our body. It's vital for our survival. When you're moving, you're also exercise and you're focused. When you're moving, you're using calories. So, for example, a big piece of weight management. And when you're moving, you're activating your cardiovascular system so that you're putting it into effort and you're building it up so it gets stronger. In many ways, that's why we call movement survival training. If you consistently partake in movement on a day-to-day basis, even a small amount, that is going to dramatically increase your chance of survival if you are put in a situation of this sympathetic activation. So I hope the sympathetic system makes sense, or what that sympathetic response would look like. So now let's take a look at the other response. The parasympathetic system is also termed as the rest and digest system. The extreme of this system activation is something like sleep. When you go to sleep, you are multi-focused, correct? Your dreams are all over the place. When you're going to sleep, we really want our blood pressure to be in a normal, even low normal range. We want to be taking good, deep breaths in order to stay actively engaged in this system. And we are really focused during sleep on digesting and cleaning. These are all things that are not going to be happening when you are in a state of survival mode, correct? These are all things that happen when your body is at peace, when your body is able to relax. And this should hopefully make sense as to why when you are experiencing some extreme level of stress, you have a very difficult time, for example, falling asleep. Your thoughts are taking over and you're hyper-focused on a scenario, for example. All of this is cutting into your body's ability to rest, clean, and get into a state of normalcy for a day-to-day higher functioning. Now, just like movement therapy is an example of survival training, connection with anything that I use the term therapy for is an example of training for us to be in this parasympathetic mode. Examples of quote-unquote therapy could be art, could be connection with other humans, could be music, it could be nature therapy like taking a hike, it could be gardening, for example, and also connecting with nature in that way. It could be cooking therapy. Everybody is slightly different on what they prefer to use for this category, but taking time and protecting time for this category is just as important as taking and protecting time for this category. Being able to put yourself into this state without actually being asleep helps you understand what it feels like to be in a parasympathetic state, in a peaceful, relaxed state. Helps you understand the value of good and healthy digesting, cleansing your body, and being able to not necessarily multitask, but multi-focus, being not so hyper-focused on things like negative emotions and so on and so forth. So by seeing this range of how the body would react, let's go back to just kind of conclude what we were talking about here. In order to understand what this stress reaction that our body goes through and this holistic concept, we have to understand that our body activates what we call this autonomic nervous system. It does it by using the five senses, especially, and it uses all of our nerves to send back signals to the brain and the spinal cord and help our body make a decision about which of these systems to activate. Now, what I really want you to understand again is that our body really should be on this side of the bar as much as possible. The more we are on this side of the bar, and remember, activation of the parasympathetic system does not equal sedentary behavior. It is not suggesting that you should be sleeping all day. The idea here is the more you can be on this side, the more you're able to live in a holistic manner, and the more you're able to activate executive functioning and your organs are actively functioning. But the more you're living on this side of the bar, the more hyper-focused you are and unable to come up with things like solutions, for example. Your blood pressure and your heart rate are unnecessarily elevated all day if you're living in a state of stress. And when that happens, your cardiovascular system starts to wear out, right? Especially in terms of digestion, you could be eating super healthy, but if you don't know how to connect and relax that nervous system, you're not really actively getting all of those nutrients that you're trying to absorb. So I'm hoping this system makes a little bit of sense, because what we're going to look at next then is how can I be in control of activating this system? How can I be in control of helping my body go farther into parasympathetic system when I'm sitting in this category too long? I apologize for making this video a little long, but I hope it was useful, and I'll see you in the next one.